Say hi, Charlotte. Hello, everybody. We miss you.
Right, what's going on, peeps? All these cameras at different levels. Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit of strength and a little bit of mobility and a little bit of recovery, essentially. Recovery just coming down to the fact that today's not gonna be about performance-based movement. Everything's going to be at a slower pace, so we're not going to do any timed sets today. Everything's going to be rep-based, so you're very much just going at your own pace, using weights that aren't challenging in like a power sense, or even for that matter, like a strength sense. So typically when we're talking about strength, power, hypertrophy, or volume training, when we're separating that out, when we're categorizing that, hypertrophy can be achieved at any intensity level, but hypertrophy is not really intensity specific outside of just being above maybe a 30 RM, 30% RM level would be sort of the lower cutoff for that. But generally anything from 30 to maybe 80% intensity is what I'll call hypertrophy. And then strength is going to be maybe anything from 75% all the way up to 90%. And then that power range is really 90% or above, or maybe 85% or above, 1 rep max. And if you're not really familiar with like 1 rep max or percentages of 1 rep max, you can think of it in terms of a rate of perceived exertion. So if we were to say like on a scale of 1 to 10, 4 to 5 being sort of easy weight training, and then 6, 7 being more like, okay, I can feel this working, and then 8, 9, 10 being like the hardest stuff that you do, right? So I want you to be in anywhere from like maybe a 5 to 7 range, might be good. So something that feels like it's getting something done, but not particularly super intensive or anything like that. Okay, so we're gonna get started with some tall kneeling halos, some single leg glute bridges, and just around the body to a hold, just to get things warmed up. So you're gonna need a kettlebell, a light bell preferably for this. So your tall kneeling halos, your tall kneeling stance is like this, so both knees on the floor. We want to emphasize keeping those glutes engaged, hips forward, okay? So, hips are forward, we've got the bell in the bottoms up position, elbows in, we're gonna open the door, go through the door, and around the head. When we do a halo, it's not really a halo, it's more of an orbit. We want to stay around the head. You shouldn't be up here above the head. We want to be able to get a lot of shoulder flexion. So that means getting the humeral bone pulled as far back as possible. So the bell should be able to make contact with the back of the shoulders, but you shouldn't be going so deep that it's like really awkward to get back out, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That's good. We're going to move into some single leg glute bridges. I'm going to drop this guy down a little bit. So I'm going to put the weight on my pubic bone, single leg, bridge, 10 repetitions. Knee is bent, maybe about 90 degrees we'll say, but just find that position where you feel the most balanced. Touch down to the floor, but come right back up. Really drive through the heel. And focus on squeezing your glutes, particularly the working side, right? 9 and 10. I'm going to switch. We want to center up that foot a little bit with the body. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That's good. And now we're going to come up, and we're just going to do some around the body to a hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, we're back to our tall kneeling halos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Don't rush these. 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3. Lower yourself down with control. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, we're coming back to our feet here. Around the body to a hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good stuff. Round 3. We are going to do 4 rounds of this, by the way. Inhale as you move around the back. So big inhale and then exhale as you come around the front. Six, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That's good. We're going to come back to the floor. 1, 2, press through the foot. 3, squeeze the glute. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good stuff. Okay, hop into your feet. Round the body. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, we're gonna go through one more time. Back to our tall kneeling halo. Again, remember, tall kneeling, we want to emphasize that hip extension. So glutes on, hips forward. 1, 2. Don't let your elbows slide out. 3. Find that platform, elbows in. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, down to the floor. 1 foot in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, last set around the body. Grab your bell. Keep it loose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That's good. Okay. All right, so we're gonna move into some single leg deadlifts. Our movement selection today, we're covering a few things. With our single leg deadlift, we're covering single leg stance, obviously. But when we're in single leg stance, it has some movement demands particular to single leg stance that are beneficial in terms of balance, proprioception, yada, 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 and just overall athleticism. So we're gonna work on that. The nice thing also about single leg deadlifts is that they are a booty builder, right? They allow you to isolate the glute, and because it's single-sided, we're able to take advantage of the bilateral deficit, which means that in a movement that is bilateral, whatever weight that you can do with that, when we do the unilateral variant of it, we're typically able to do more on a single side than we are if we were to just kind of divide the bilateral movement in half. That makes sense. So for example, if you can deadlift 400 pounds, typically you're going to be able to do a single leg deadlift with more than 200 pounds because the demands on the spine are typically what are the limiter on a deadlift rather than the limits on the strength of the leg itself. Okay, so for that reason we're able to overload one side more than the other. Okay, so we're gonna get started with our single leg deadlifts. I want you to do these in a stiff leg style. So there's gonna be a lot of hamstring stretch. That's the main feedback cue that we're looking for, is that hamstring stretch is gonna let us know to come back up. So it looks something like this, the overall body position. I'm trying to keep that supporting leg fairly stiff and straight. And then from here, I'm just thinking about squeezing the glute. You can do whatever you want with this foot. Just try not to load into that elevated leg. So when you come up, try not to just shift your weight into it completely. Stay light on this leg when you come up. So I'm up, and I'm just gonna touch my toe down for a little bit of balance, and then right back into it. Okay. One thing we really want to watch out for with the single leg deadlifts, in terms of efficacy, is we need to make sure that those hips aren't tilting, at least not to a significant degree. So when I single leg deadlift, I'm trying to keep the levels of my hips, or the level of my hips, square. I don't want a tilt. So I don't want the elevated leg, I don't want that hip to tilt up, right? So I'm here, I don't want that hip to open up like this and start facing that way. Don't want that. You're gonna lose a lot of activity in that supporting leg, and it's gonna feel really easy. We don't want easy, we want effective, okay? So, let's get started. We're just gonna do 10 reps per side with our single leg deads. So, grab your bell. I want you to hold in the opposite arm to the leg that you're standing on. This is just gonna have to make sense to you in terms of the terminology you use. I call this opposite side because I'm holding the bell in the arm opposite to the leg I'm standing on. Some people call this the same side. Doesn't matter. Whatever works for you, that's the terminology you'll use. But the point is, I want you to keep the weight on the inside thigh of your standing leg. That's gonna help you keep the weight center loaded so that you can focus better on how you're moving your body. Remember, it's not about the weight, it's about how you move your body. Squeeze the butt, come up tall. Squeeze the butt, come up tall. Try not to come down too fast. Oh God. And 10. We're going to switch. 1. We're going to keep those hips level. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. Okay. Now, I have about a gazillion things I could say about the single leg deadlift in terms of how I want to cue you on it. let's go over the important things. One of the most important things is position. Position, position, position. All movements have certain positions that you are required to demonstrate. If you can't demonstrate that position, then you didn't really do the movement. So here's what I mean by that. Generally, all movements will have a position 1 and a position 2. Your start position and your finish position. This is my start position. This is my finish position. Okay? If your finish position looks like this, what's happening? Okay? At the very least, you're missing out or losing out or not demonstrating or not getting the effect of the movement in the way that we want to. What does it mean to have that leg hanging down here? It means that you're not connecting your upper and lower halves. Okay? It means that you don't have sufficient lumbopelvic control. So just that relationship between how these muscles integrate to stabilize the pelvis and thus stabilize everything upstream and everything downstream from that. If we lose that leg, if that leg is down, that tells me that the glute on that elevated leg is not active. It needs to be active because those muscles tightening add rigidity and stability and connectedness to everything else around it, all that peripheral musculature. Okay? That's really important for your balance. It's really important for your proprioception. We need to have that connection. So, one of the things I like to remind people to do is when you start this movement, the first thing that moves, people who do not do this exercise well do this first. They bend forward, they break the line, okay, your body being aligned, they break the line, and then start pulling that leg up. Set the line, maintain the line. The line represents your connectedness, your connection and your rigidity and that stability that we're looking for. If there's slack in the system, you are not going to be able to balance, which means you're not going to be able to perform the exercise. So, set the line. Glute on, that's going to pull that leg back. When I contract that glute, that pulls the leg into extension. That brings your femur into the ischium of your pelvis. Okay, now we have full extension. Now, we're more rigid and stable and have less sort of variables that are going to cause us to not do this exercise well or not perform it the way as intended. All right, I'm done with my spiel about that. I'm going to grab a heavier belt. Let's do set number 2. It's also a good idea not to have minimalist shoes for this, or at least not ones that are kind of flimsy, and at least not be on a flimsy floor. Stable shoes is important for the single leg stuff. You don't want to be dancing around everywhere. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Leading with that back leg, right? 9, 10. Okay, switch it. I need that straight line, okay? Leg is up. The rear leg does the driving, okay? I shouldn't be tilting forward unless my back leg is moving up. Otherwise, I'm going to lose that line, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That's good. Okay, let's bump it up. Let's get serious. Oh boy. Okay. You guys seeing here? I'm gonna tilt this way. There we go. All right. Let's take another look. Forget which leg I started on. That's all right. 1, 2. Don't let the bell drift out in front of you. Pull it into the foot. 3, 4. Should stay over the foot. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And switch. 1, not too fast on the way down. 2, you need to go as slow as you need to maintain balance. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Connection. 10. There we go. With the single leg deadlift, your goal is not to do reps, okay? Reps is not a skill that we train. We want to train the skill. And the skill here is not falling on your ass. So you need to take it as slow as you need to not lose balance. When you lose balance, you shift the load off of the muscles that you're trying to train. So we need to maintain balance to maintain the effectiveness of the movement. If you're dancing around everywhere, okay, then you're just going for reps and it's not going to be an effective set. You're wasting your time, okay? Take it slow as you need to maintain your balance. Balance is the skill that you're training. And if you can stay balanced, then you're able to target the muscles. Okay, last set, set number 4. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Almost lost that one. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. Switch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Work on keeping those hips level. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Woo! All right, so now that we're done with that, we're gonna do a little bit of soft tissue stuff for the lateral glute, which ironically is called glute medius. So, now I like a bit of a harder ball. This is a softer ball. This is a training lacrosse ball, so it's got a little bit of give. And that's okay, because that's all I have, so we'll deal with it. Okay, so taking a look at the side. If this is the halfway point on my side, glute medius is slightly behind. TFL, tensor fascia latae, is right in the front here. If you were to stand in front of the mirror naked and you rotated your leg in, you'd see that TFL pop out. But glute medius just behind is where we're going for. We want to be high butt and slightly behind the halfway point. But bottom line is, you want to dig into the spot in that general area where you feel the most tension, restriction, neural feedback, right? It's gonna be talking to you. So that's what we want to tap into. Now, you can do this on a wall to really control how much pressure you put into the ball, or you can do it on the floor, in which case you have more of your body weight pressing into the ball. So, ball, you're gonna stick it against the wall, and then you're gonna put that spot that I showed you against the ball, and we'll just start with some broad spectrum rolling. So it's back and forth. Try to cover all the corners. So you're leaning your weight into it, right? Go back and forth. Now, one other thing that you can do is if you've been working on and you've found that spot that is particularly tense, we're going to put some pressure there, we're going to hold that, and then you're going to rotate. You're just going to stay on the ball of your foot, and you're going to rotate your thigh in and rotate your thigh out. And that's going to lengthen some of the muscles of the butt, particularly the piriformis. Not that we're necessarily directly on the piriformis, but you should feel some friction. And then one last thing that you can do, I've got all these kettlebells in my way, is move into flexion, extension, and find the spot where you feel like that's really having an effect. And again, we can do this on the floor. So, lying on the ball, and how I would position myself here is I take the top leg and pull it behind, and then I like to do that sliding movement where I go into flexion, extension, I almost do it in sort of an ellipse type movement, like a bicycle type movement. Yeah, there we go. That's the right spot. Ah. Oh. Breathe. Okay, I'm going to do the other side, and I'm just going to do this from the floor, just because this is working better for me with the softer ball. So again, we can try that tactic where we're rotating in, rotating out. So you're almost doing like a clamshell. Just make sure you're on the spot where you feel the friction of that movement. Because my theory here is any tissue restrictions are going to cause restriction in the movement. And if we can identify those restrictions by putting pressure on it and finding those trigger points, if we mobilize through that restriction while we're applying pressure to it, then we'll be able to work that out and really get the benefit of doing this self-myofascial release stuff. Okay, bicycles. Allow yourself time to actually work these spots out, right? Doing these different methods. Don't just hop on for like 30 seconds and hop off and be satisfied with that. You know, spend 2 minutes, 3 minutes per side. Really work it out. Don't be in such a rush, eh? Okay, that's good. I'm just going to do a bit of a hip stretch here. So I'm just centering up my chest with my forward knee, keeping my shoulders square as I fold at the waist. And I'm going to switch. So again, centering up with that forward knee, fold at the waist. All right, that's good. we're gonna move on to some pullovers. We're doing pullovers 3 ways. What does that mean? So we're gonna do a pullover movement, 3 different variations of that pullover movement. We're gonna do some pullovers with a band from shoulder to waist. We're gonna do some pullovers with a dumbbell from overhead to chest. And then we're gonna do some pullovers that are actually ab wheel rollouts, okay? Which you can also do with a ball if you're not super, if you're not Superman. If you're not super skilled at the rollouts and don't have tremendous upper body strength, right? Our reps are gonna change with all of those. We're gonna do 20 reps with the band, 15 reps with the dumbbell, and then 10 reps on the rollouts. We're gonna do that 2 times through. And then we're gonna do some myofascial for the lats, okay? All right, so I'm gonna set my bands up here. So I like to use 2 red bands for my band straight arm push downs, personally. And this kind of looks like the ski erg, if you've ever seen that thing. So I'm just gonna insert my hands through the loops. I'm gonna back up a little bit, hips back a bit, slow on the way up, and then pack it in. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Good. At the end of that range, I want to make sure that my shoulders are staying down, that I'm not dumping my shoulders forward. I see that a lot when people do this exercise. We need to maintain the postural elements. Like I had reviewed with our single leg deadlift, if those hips tilt, we're shifting the load away from the target muscles. Same thing here. If I shift not my musculature, but if I shift my skeleton position, right? If I'm shifting where those articulations are and those bones are, then the muscles that attach to those, the attachments aren't working the way they're supposed to. But really, bottom line is, when I do this, I'm trying to use different muscles to perform the movement, right? There's some shrugging happening, there's some trap involvement, there's some chest involvement, there's some all sorts of shits going on, right? So we want to avoid that in order to keep the emphasis on the target muscles, which in this case is triceps are working isometrically. They're holding a straight arm position. However, the long head of the tricep does attach to the shoulder blade, so it crosses that articulation. So that is actually helping to bring the arm back here. But predominantly the lats are bringing the arms back and down. Chest to some degree is keeping those arms in. I don't want those arms to flare out or rotate. I want elbow pits forward, elbows down. Okay, so I'm maintaining my external rotation, okay? Elbow pits up, elbows down. Externally rotated throughout that range of motion. Okay, moving on to the dumbbell. Okay, so I'm going to do this on the ball. Let's make sure I got this in a good setup here. Make sure you don't have too squishy of a ball. Particularly if you're doing stuff with heavy dumbbells, make sure it's not super squishy. Okay, so back this up. This is a 50-pound dumbbell. I've gone as heavy as 70 pounds for my pullovers, maybe 75. I don't think I've gone above that though. I generally like to stay in a 10 reps or above range for these. Yeah, and that's all I'll say about that. Okay, we want to take a false grip. So when you're gripping this guy, don't grip on the handle itself. We're going to be sort of having our hands overlapping on the end of on the plates, right? So I'm going to set this guy on my chest, and then I'm going to roll into my bridge position. You want to roll far enough forward that your head is supported by the ball, but not cranked forward, okay? We're going to overlap those hands. We're going to pop up to a straight arm position. I'm going to re-emphasize elbows forward, elbow pits back. I'm going to take a breath, maintain that pressure as I lower, and then exhale as I squeeze and come up. Going for 15 reps on this one. Awesome. And roll up, set her down. If you don't have great shoulder range, I would suggest letting those elbows bend a little bit at the end. I find that tends to help my shoulder position at the end of that range of motion. Okay, so last one is the rollout, which I need a thingamajigger. Alright, I found it. Okay, so ab wheel. Okay. Make sure that ball doesn't get in my way. Alright, so all the same rules apply with the ab wheel. We want to keep abdominals engaged. We want those glutes to stay engaged as well, because what's important here, much the same way with our single leg deadlift, we need to maintain hip extension, okay? Your goal is to maintain your plank, so to speak. So from knee to shoulder, there shouldn't be any deviation from the line that we're setting. If the way that you perform this exercise is to purposely or intentionally break that line, you're not doing the exercise as intended, which means that you're not getting the benefit of the exercise. You may as well not even do it. You need to find an alternative, okay? So, utmost importance, keep those hips extended. Really the best way to do that outside of just thinking of your core is to contract your glutes, to lock that pelvis into place with the rest of the body. Roll out and pull back, but you're not pulling your hips back, right? So, hips forward, roll out, pull it back, but don't pull your hips back. So we don't want this. See that a lot. Hips stay forward. Squeeze those glutes. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That's good. Okay, so that's all 3 movements. Pullovers 3 ways. We're gonna come back around to the band. And I'm gonna bring this off to the side, maybe, so you can see. Okay, backing it up. Hips back a little bit. Bringing the hips back from a straight position to a hip flex position. Just allowing me to increase my range of motion to my side, right? Because my destination is arm to the side or even slightly behind. If I bring my hips back, that's increasing that range of motion. A larger range of motion is always nice. 1. Control it on the way up. 3. 4. Don't just let them snap you back. 5. 6. 7. 8. Shoulders down. 9. If you can't keep your shoulders down, you need to come forward. 10. 11. 12. 13. 14. Keep your elbows back. 15. 16. 17. 18. 19. 20. Good stuff. Okay, we're coming back to the ball. Grab your dumbbell. Set it on the chest. Roll out to your head supported. Overlap your hands. Bring it up. Take a breath. Maintain your tension. 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. 11. 12. 13. It's okay to rest at the top. 14. No, I'm not just saying that. 15. Good stuff. Okay, roll out is our last movement. Hips forward. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, there's lots of that. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, good stuff. Those lats are trash now. Okay, so you need a roller now. All right, so we're gonna take our roller. This is a roller. This one's made of EVA foam. You don't want the cheap ones. There's some white ones they sell that are just really crappy and they don't last. Especially if you're always like sitting on always the same one. You ever go into a gym and you go to grab a roller and all their rollers look like these? They all cave in the middle because everyone just kind of arbitrarily rolls their quads always in the center of the roller. Use the entirety of the roller. Try to spread that mileage around, so to speak. Okay, so we are gonna do some lat smashing. So roller on the floor, butt on the floor. You are gonna be lying on your side and you're gonna set the roller into your armpit essentially, but we're gonna make sure that it is just inferior to the armpit crease itself. So we're more so on that teres major. And the more towards the insertion of the lats. And you're gonna roll forward and back, forward and back. So I'm leaning back and then rolling forward. leaning back and rolling forward. I want you to keep your hand or your palm turned to the sky, and that's just going to wrap the muscles that we're targeting. They're going to wrap those up into a longer length, essentially longer resting length. And this is really the position that we want to be able to maintain our functionality, so to speak. So generally speaking, you're not going to be as strong or powerful or as effective in an internally rotated arm position. Not that you shouldn't be doing any stretching or rolling in those positions, but I really focus on, because when my shoulders are not working right, it forces me into more internal rotation. So I'm trying to really emphasize the external rotation here as I'm applying this pressure. Because the pressure and those knots, those triggers, those restrictions, is going to force me into internal rotation. So I'm trying to really emphasize that external rotation as I apply this pressure. And just work in a bit of a range here. So have a high range and a low range. So you can go as low as to the ribs, or what feels more like the ribs, I guess I should say. Okay, one other thing I want you to do here is we're going to draw a bit of a circle. So it's almost like you're hitching a ride. I make a thumb, and it's like I'm trying to hitch a ride like that. You stick your thumb out. I don't know, I've never gone hitchhiking before, so this is not from experience. But this is the idea that we're trying to get here. And this method is just called tack and stretch. It's kind of the same idea as when we did, when we were using the ball for the medial glute and we're going into hip flexion, hip extension. So we're just trying to shorten and elongate, go back and forth as we apply pressure. Okay, that's good. Let's go to the other side. So again, in the armpit, but slightly below. So we're onto the muscle bulk that's just below the armpit there. Again, keep palm up. And just arrange the roller in the right position for you, for the angle that you're doing this at. Okay, let's try those hitchhikers. And just find the spot where you feel that friction happening. Try to draw as big of a circle as you can. Stuff. All right, we're gonna put that guy away. All right, we are getting there. We're gonna do one more exercise, okay? We're gonna do a bottoms up press, shift, and shoot. We're just gonna do 5 reps per side, and we'll do that 3 times through, easy peasy. So we need to start in a half kneeling position for this. Bottoms up with the bell. We're on the arm on the same side as the elevated leg here. So we're going to press. We're going to hip shift. And we're going to shoot the foot through. Pull it back. Come back up. Pull it in. Okay? So press, shift, shoot, back up. For the shoot, I just want you to strike the heel. That's all. We're not going to worry about getting into like a, maximized hip extension or anything like that. All I want is you to strike the heel. Baby steps, right? If the shoot is too challenging for you, just stick with the hip shift. If bottoms up is too challenging, then you're just gonna take a traditional position with the bell, or you can use a dumbbell, okay? Okay, switching sides. Press, shift, shoot. Oh, need to press. One. Two. One more. God. Fantastic. Did I say we're doing 3 times through? Okay. Back to the other side. Make sure you're using a weight that's light enough for you to do this competently. Competence is key, right? Shouldn't be going into the gym flopping around like a fish out of water. Move with competence. Okay, here we go. Press, shift, shoot. That's one. Two. Take this as slow as you need to. Again, focusing on balance, focusing on control. Nothing else matters. The reps don't matter. You're training your skill, not the reps. Press. Shift the hips. Don't just fall towards the floor. Now remember, with the bottoms up kettlebell stuff, maintaining the bell in its bottoms up position is not about grip, it's about position. If your elbow deviates off axis, you are going to lose the bell. Okay, it doesn't matter how hard you grip. The key to maintaining bottoms up position is keeping vertical forearm throughout the motion that you're doing, throughout the exercise. That's why bottoms up presses are so good at training presses in general, because it helps to train you to stay in alignment. Lost it. Also, don't let your thumb rotate forward. Try to keep your thumb pulled back. Maintain your external rotation. If you lose the bell, probably 9 times out of 10, you're gonna lose it because you rotated your thumb in. So when we're here, you're generally gonna lose it this way, okay? Is how that bell's gonna roll out of position. So just a little bit of emphasis on keeping that thumb pulled back is really gonna help you maintain that position. Okay. So we're gonna finish off with a banded hip stretch. Probably the most ideal band for this is a medium light band. So I think this is about 1.25 inches wide. Preferably brand new is good. That's a really nice resistance for this. If you're gonna step in, band is gonna go right under the cheek. You're gonna step back, get some tension. Banded leg is the kneeling leg. And then from here, once you're down to your half kneeling, you want to set the pelvis, okay? So you're gonna contract through the glutes and the pelvic abdominals and tuck that tailbone under to lock the pelvis into the femur and keep that stable so that when we go to descend into our lunge type position, we don't have too much slack in the system and we're not dumping pressure into the low back, okay? But once you contract those glutes and you lock that pelvis, you should immediately feel that tension in the anterior portion of your hip. Okay, so you're gonna grab your band, foot's going through, and we are going to bring this band right under the cheek. Banded leg's the kneeling leg. Okay, so we want something like that. I'm gonna squeeze my glutes. You're gonna see my tailbone tuck under, and you should immediately feel tension right through here, okay? Immediately feel tension through there. And then if you feel tension, you don't need to do anything else. You're just gonna stay right here. It's not effective to push deeper into your stretch when you already feel the stretch, okay? If you feel the stretch, that's generally as far as you can go anyway. And then if you try to go further, you're just introducing tension into other areas, other muscles, other articulations. But what we can do here is do a little bit of contract relax method. So I'm gonna squeeze my glute for 6 seconds and hold that. So 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I'm going to release that glute, and then I'm going to descend a little deeper. So basically I'm lunging a little deeper into that stretch, because the effect that we're going for is when you're at the end range of motion, there is some sort of cellular signaling that tells your antagonistic fibers to contract in the opposing direction and keep you from going any further through that range of motion. But when you contract at the end of that range of motion, we can try to circumvent that response to allow us to go deeper into that stretch. So it's a little bit of a neuromuscular workaround. This is just called, this is like PNF stretching basically, or reactive neuromuscular facilitation, or they call it something new now. We don't have to get too technical. So contracting, holding for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna relax my glute, and then I'm going to descend a little bit deeper into that stretch. I wanna be very aware that I'm not just consistently staying like super upright. I wanna make sure that my trunk position is more or less matching my femur position of that rear leg. Otherwise, I'm just gonna be constantly hyperextending into my low back. So I need to make sure that I maintain a little bit of a forward angle the deeper I go into this stretch. That's really important. Okay, I'm gonna ease gently out of there, and I'm gonna switch legs. So, going right into the crease, the butt crease, not the butt grease. Aren't I a funny guy? Okay, so I'm in my half kneeling. I'm gonna contract through my glutes. And I immediately feel some tension here. When we use the band does a couple things. For one, it just gives you some sort of proprioceptive feedback. But the main thing that we do with the band is we do what's called distracting or approximating the articulations, essentially. So the band is putting pressure on my femur and pulling it forward into the hip capsule, and so it's just adjusting how the femur sits inside of the articulation. The theory there being it's helping us to address the passivity or the passive qualities of the joints, because joints have sliding, gliding, and rolling actions that are more kinematic. They don't rely on they're not voluntary actions. They are just sort of natural kinematic actions. Kinematic just means it's movement without the use of muscular control or muscle action. But if you have stiff joints, basically those passive actions are limited or restricted or something like that. So when we're using the bands, we're trying to emulate that, so to speak. Okay, so I'm squeezing my glute, holding for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to release, and I'm going to descend a little deeper into my stretch. I'm very aware that I'm not leaning back into it. I want to make sure that I'm not dumping pressure into my lumbar. And I'm just holding this new position with a relaxed glute. One other tip I would have for you for this particular stretch is to have a dowel in hand to help support your body weight. Because when we're in the half kneeling, all of our body weight is loading into the leg that we're trying to stretch. And by definition, a loaded muscle cannot stretch because it can never get past an initial shortened length. Because when you contract, those myosin and actin filaments overlap. They go into a pre-shortened phase. You have a resting phase, and then you have a stretched phase. It wouldn't be completely disconnected like that, but so when we're trying to stretch, we're trying to go from resting length into a stretch length. But when we're loaded, we go into a shortened length, so we have more overlapping. So by definition, we're not actually stretching. Does it mean that's not effective? No, but it's, language matters, and I think it's important to be as literal as possible here. So contract through the glute, squeeze, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to release that glute and go a little bit deeper into that stretch. I'm sure you've heard people say stretching should never hurt. That's true. And also it's not going to be effective. Like I said, if you feel that tension, then you're already hitting that stretch. You don't need to go any deeper. If you're going to get more stretch length, it's going to happen on its own, right? Those filaments are going to lengthen on their own. That's an involuntary thing. Okay, and come out. All right, guys, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me for my recovery workout, my strength recovery workout, and we'll catch you guys at the next one. All right, peace out.